The neon lights of downtown shimmered across wet pavements as the city came alive at night. Every sign, every reflection in the puddles, danced in rhythm with the muffled beats spilling from the bars along the street. Among the crowd and the chaos, a young woman named Lila prepared for her nightly performance. She adjusted her costume one last time, the sequins glinting under the harsh fluorescent bulbs. To the patrons waiting inside, she was a performer, a dancer meant to entertain. But behind the glitter and the smile, Lila carried a secret. Each night, every coin she earned was saved carefully, dropped into a small metal box hidden in her tiny apartment. That box was more than money. It was a promise to herself, a promise that one day she would escape the bar's neon prison and build a dance academy for girls who had nowhere else to go. The bar, called the Velvet Moon, smelled of perfume, spilled drinks, and cigarette smoke. The music thumped, vibrating through the floor and into the walls. Lila stepped onto the stage, her movements precise yet filled with the longing of someone trapped between worlds. Patrons cheered, but their applause seemed hollow compared to the silent hope she carried within. After her performance, she returned to her tiny apartment. The metal box sat on a worn wooden shelf. She opened it, counted the coins, and whispered to herself, "One day, you'll be dancing somewhere else, somewhere free." The next morning, Lila attended the small community center, where she volunteered to teach dance to underprivileged children. She loved these moments. The girls looked up at her with wide eyes, eager to learn, unaware of the hardships she faced at night. She guided them patiently, showing each move with care and attention. Their laughter and curiosity reminded her of why she endured, why she saved, and why she dreamed. It was during one of these classes that Ethan Ross, a well-known local dance instructor, walked in. His eyes scanned the room, pausing on Lila as she adjusted a student's posture. "You have talent," he said simply. His voice was calm but carried authority. Lila blinked, startled. "Thank you," she replied softly. "I think you could teach professionally," he continued. "Have you ever considered taking your skills further?" She hesitated. I'm not sure it's possible." Ethan smiled. "Possibility begins with someone willing to try. Talent doesn't vanish because of circumstance." Back at the bar that night, Vince, the club manager, leaned against the counter. "You've been distracted lately," he said, eyeing her closely. "You need to focus if you want to keep earning." Lila looked at him steadily. "I'm focused, just on something bigger." He laughed, a sharp sound that echoed across the smoky room. "Bigger than this stage, you're dreaming, girl." She didn't respond. Her smile was polite, but her mind was elsewhere, on the metal box, on the community center, on the possibility that Ethan had offered. Weeks passed, and Lila balanced her dual life. The bar by night, the community center by day. Each performance became a reminder of the life she didn't want, while each class with the girls strengthened her resolve. One evening, as she counted the coins she had saved that week, Ethan called. "I want to offer you a part-time teaching position at my studio," he said. "It's not much, but it's a start." Lila felt her heart leap. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," he replied simply. And she did. From that day on, Lila's life began to change. The studio was small, but the mirrors reflected more than her movements. They reflected her potential. Her students, both young and old, learned not just dance, but confidence, discipline, and resilience. And slowly, the city began to notice her, not as a bar dancer, but as a teacher, a mentor, and an inspiration. Yet the journey was far from easy. Late nights at the bar exhausted her. Some nights, she doubted herself, wondering if she could ever escape the shadow of the neon lights. But each morning, when she watched her students smile and improve, she remembered why she endured. Her dream, once hidden in a small metal box, began to feel closer, more tangible, and entirely. The next morning, the city was painted in gold, that soft, forgiving light that comes after a night of rain. Lila walked toward Ross School of Dance, barefoot inside her worn sneakers, clutching her shoes in a paper bag. Her heart beat faster than her steps. Every sound, the subway doors closing, the hum of traffic, the chatter of pedestrians, felt like part of a rhythm guiding her forward. When she reached the studio, she paused in front of the glass doors. Inside, she saw dancers stretching and moving with perfect precision. Her reflection stared back at her, hair tied neatly, eyes wide with anticipation, a flicker of doubt lingering. Behind her, the street stretched with its noise and neon lights, her old life. Ahead, silence, mirrors, and the unknown, her possible future. She exhaled slowly. "Don't freeze. You've danced through worse," she whispered. Inside Studio B, the smell of polished floors and sweat filled the air, the scent of discipline. Sunlight streamed across the mirrors, reflecting the practiced movements of the students. Each one moved with purpose, a sharp contrast to the chaotic, noisy nights at the bar. A woman at the front desk looked up. "Can I help you?" "I'm here to see Mr. Ethan Ross," he said. "Audition at 10. Lila replied softly. The woman glanced at her. Thrift store jacket, tied shoes, hopeful eyes. "He's in Studio B, down the hall, second door on the left." Lila nodded and walked down the hallway. The echo of her footsteps felt louder than expected. Behind each door, she heard the rhythmic thump of music and bodies landing in sync. It was a language she had once spoken fluently, but had almost forgotten. Ethan noticed her entering. His gaze softened as he studied her. "You came," he said, calm and steady. "I wasn't sure if you were serious," she admitted. "I was," he replied. "Are you ready?" She looked around. The other dancers were poised and confident. Suddenly she felt small, an outsider in a world she had long admired. I haven't danced in a real studio in years," she confessed. Ethan's expression softened. "Then this floor will remember you." He clapped his hands. "All right, everyone. 5-minute break. Lila, the floor is yours." The students moved aside, forming a loose circle. Her palms were sweaty. Her knees trembled. Music began, a slow piano melody, uncertain, fragile, like the story of her life. She closed her eyes. For a second, she was back at the Velvet Moon, lights flashing, shouting voices, applause that never meant anything. Then she remembered her metal box, the label she had written in Hope Dance Academy Fund. She exhaled and began to move. At first, her body hesitated, stiff and mechanical. But gradually, it remembered. Her arms drew arcs through the air. Her feet whispered across the floor. Every movement told a story of loss, endurance, and hope. The studio was silent. Even Ethan remained still, observing. Every gesture, every expression, revealed a life forged in struggle. When she finished, there was no applause, only reverent quiet. Ethan stepped forward slowly. "That wasn't rusty. That was real." Lila blinked back tears. "Real doesn't pay bills," she said softly. He smiled. "Maybe not, but it opens doors. How would you like to teach Saturday classes for beginners? It's part-time, but it's a start." Her breath caught. "Teach?" "Yes," he said. "You have emotion that most dancers spend years trying to fake. I can teach technique, but I can't teach heart." She laughed softly, shaking her head in disbelief. I'll do it." The next few weeks were a blur. She worked nights at the bar, teaching days at the studio. Exhaustion weighed heavily on her, but her spirit was alive. At the Velvet Moon, she danced for survival. At Ross School, she danced for purpose. Every morning, she arrived before everyone else, practicing alone on the polished floors. When the first students arrived, children from middle-class families, she guided them gently, her voice calm and sure. Most didn't know her story. To them, she was simply Miss Lila, the soft-spoken new instructor who moved with both grace and authority. One evening, Ethan approached her after class. "You're a natural with the kids," he said. Lila smiled. "Maybe because I remember what it's like to be one of them, scared, trying too hard to belong." He nodded thoughtfully. "You've got something rare, Lila. You don't just dance. You make people believe they can." Walking home that night, those words echoed in her mind. You make people believe they can. She looked up at the city skyline, windows glowing like tiny dreams, and whispered, "Then maybe I can too." Back at the bar, Vince noticed her fatigue. "You've been off lately. Trouble sleeping?" "Just new commitments," she replied. "Don't get soft. The customers notice when you're distracted," he warned. "I'm not distracted," she said firmly. "I just dance for more than applause now." Her words silenced him. She stepped onto the stage, not for the crowd, but for herself, each movement a quiet declaration. "I'm not defined by this place anymore." Afterward, she returned home, opened her metal box, and counted her savings, $2,350. Slow progress, but progress nonetheless. She wrote in her notebook, "New goal, 1 year, find a place, start small." Looking out the window at the city below, she whispered, "I'm getting closer." Weeks turned into months, and the studio had become more than a workplace. It was her sanctuary. Every morning, sunlight spilled across the polished floors like a blessing, and every night, she stayed back a little longer, replaying choreography, correcting posture, whispering adjustments to herself. Her students adored her. They called her Miss Lila, and their excitement to learn made her feel alive in a way the bar never could. She didn't share her past with them. She didn't need to. In their laughter, their mistakes, their triumphs, she saw reflections of herself, eager, scared, yet relentless. One afternoon, as she adjusted a young student's arms, Ethan watched quietly from the doorway. He had observed her growth over the past months and noticed the subtle transformation, her posture more confident, her movements fluid, her presence commanding yet gentle. "You've changed, Lila," he said, stepping forward. She smiled faintly. "Teaching them, it changes me too." "I think you're ready for more," he said, pulling out a form. "This is for the Community Youth Scholarship Program. I'd like you to apply." Her hands froze. "Apply? I don't know if I'm ready." Ethan's gaze was steady. "Talent and experience don't wait for readiness. You already have both." That night, back at the Velvet Moon, the contrast between her two lives was sharper than ever. Vince leaned casually on the counter. "You've been different lately," he said. "Even the regulars notice. Focus on the money, Lila, not your daydreams." "I am focused," she replied, her voice calm. "Just on something bigger." Vince smirked. "Bigger than this? Don't forget, you can't escape reality. Dreams don't pay rent." Her eyes narrowed. "Sometimes they do. In the long run." The audition for the scholarship program loomed. Lila practiced every night, sometimes until her muscles ached. Her movements carried layers of emotion: the loss of her father, the struggle to support her mother, the hours spent on stages she never wanted. Her inner dialogue reminded her why she persisted. "This is for them, the students, the girls who deserve a place to dance and dream. This is for me." When the day arrived, she stepped into the studio. The polished floors reflected the sunlight, but the weight of her past pressed against her chest. Other dancers were present, all polished, confident, and trained. Lila felt small, but she drew in a steadying breath. Ethan's voice reached her across the room. "Remember, your heart leads the movement, the rest follows." She began her routine. Every step told a story: fear, endurance, hope, and triumph. Her spins, her leaps, her expressions conveyed more than technique. They revealed a life shaped by struggle and resilience. The judges were silent, captivated. When the music ended, a hush hung in the air. Then, a slow, appreciative clap. One by one, the others joined. "You have a gift," one judge said. "Your movement is not just technical, it's emotional. You connect." Lila felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, not for recognition, but because she had remembered who she was and realized she had never lost herself. Weeks passed. She received the acceptance letter. She had been selected. Her heart raced as she read the words over and over. The opportunity meant more than funding or prestige. It meant validation that her talent and perseverance mattered. Her students at Ross School celebrated with her, and even some at the community center joined in. Their cheers, innocent and unrestrained, reminded her of why she saved every coin and endured every hardship. Yet challenges weren't over. One evening, as Lila left the community center, she saw a familiar figure across the street, Vince, leaning against a lamppost, his cigarette glowing in the dark. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. He smiled thinly. "Checking on the progress of the girl who's got everyone fooled. Teaching little girls, huh? Funny. You don't belong here, Vince," she said firmly. He shrugged. "Neither do you. But people never forget their past. Secrets don't stay buried forever." Her pulse quickened. "You can't scare me anymore." "I'm not trying to scare you," he said. "Just reminding you, the past follows everyone, whether they want it to or not." And then he walked away, leaving her under the flickering streetlight, her breath shallow and mind racing. That night, she sat by her window, staring at her metal box. She had enough saved for the studio's small expansion, but now, with Vince's words echoing, everything felt fragile. She opened the box, counted her coins slowly, and whispered, "Please, don't let them take this from me." But deep inside, she knew she couldn't stop now. Her dream was no longer just hers. It belonged to the girls she taught, to the lives she had touched, and to the promise she had made to herself. Her resolve hardened. Whatever the past threw at her, she would dance through it, teach through it, and rise beyond it. Weeks turned into months, and Rising Steps Academy, a name Lila had written in her notebook long ago, was slowly becoming a reality. The community center was bursting with life. Children arrived in colorful shoes, parents brought snacks, and volunteers helped prepare practice rooms. The once quiet studio now pulsed with energy, filled with the laughter, music, and movement of eager young dancers. Lila moved through the crowd, adjusting a posture here, correcting a foot placement there. She watched a little girl named Anaya attempt a pirouette for the first time. When the spin faltered, Anaya's eyes brimmed with tears. Lila knelt beside her. "Every dancer falls before they fly," she whispered gently. "Try again, and remember, you're stronger than you think." Anaya's face lit up, and she spun again, this time perfectly. Lila smiled. Moments like these reminded her why she endured the long nights, the tired days, the doubt, and the judgment of strangers. One evening, after the children had gone home, Ethan approached Lila. "You've built something incredible here," he said, his eyes scanning the busy studio. "But it's time to think bigger. I've been talking with a local foundation. They want to support you if you expand to more neighborhoods." Lila's heart skipped. "More? I'm not sure we're ready for that." Ethan's voice was steady. "You're ready. You've prepared, taught, and inspired. The foundation just needs someone to lead the way." She nodded slowly. She was ready, not just because of the funding or opportunity, but because she had grown, through hardship, through doubt, through every coin saved and every secret step practiced in the dark. But progress always comes with obstacles. One rainy night, while locking the studio after a long day, Lila smelled smoke curling from a corner. Panic gripped her. She ran inside, coughing as thick gray smoke filled the room. The fire had started near the storage closet, possibly from faulty wiring. Her students' costumes, shoes, and practice mats were in danger. With trembling hands, she grabbed the fire extinguisher and managed to put out most of the flames before the fire department arrived. The ceiling and floors were scorched, mirrors shattered, but no one was hurt. Standing outside, drenched from the rain, Lila felt the familiar pang of despair. The dream she had worked so hard to build was now charred before her eyes. Ethan wrapped a jacket around her shoulders. "It's just a building," he said softly. "You've built more than walls and mirrors. You've built hope." Her voice trembled. "I don't know if hope is enough this time." "It is," he said firmly. "And besides, hope isn't yours alone. Look around. You've inspired a whole community." The next day, volunteers arrived at the studio. Former students, parents, and neighbors began cleaning, painting, and repairing the damage. Donations arrived, including shoes, costumes, and even financial support from local businesses. Her dream, though scarred, began to heal. During the rebuilding process, Lila discovered another gift. The metal box she had used to save coins all those years was placed in a glass case near the entrance. On it, she had scribbled, "The beginning of a dream." It became a symbol for the students and the community. They understood its meaning, how one small, quiet act of perseverance could grow into something much bigger than anyone imagined. Weeks later, the academy reopened. The first rehearsal felt like a celebration. The children laughed, teachers guided, and the polished floors reflected a brighter, renewed space. Lila watched her students dance, their confidence and joy a living proof that she had endured the darkest moments. Standing alone later that evening, Lila traced her reflection in the mirrors. Barefoot, she danced slowly, silently. Every step told a story: fear, struggle, perseverance, hope, and triumph. She whispered to herself, "This is for every girl who thought she couldn't. This is for all the dreams that were hidden but never lost." Soon, Rising Steps Academy began to expand. Lila introduced scholarships, guest instructors, and launched weekend workshops for girls from other neighborhoods. Her story began to attract media attention, not the neon-lit, judgmental headlines of the past, but articles praising her resilience, courage, and impact on the community. Even Vince, who once mocked her dreams, sent a small check with a note, "For the next generation of dancers, proud of you." For the first time, Lila understood the truth. Dreams were not just about escape or fame. They were about creating possibilities for others, inspiring courage, and proving that persistence could transform lives. That night, she stood alone in the studio. The lights were dimmed, the floor polished, and the mirrors reflected not just her, but the countless faces she had touched. She moved slowly, deliberately, each step a whisper of the journey she had endured. The city beyond the windows buzzed with life, oblivious to the quiet victories inside. And yet, Lila felt a profound sense of peace. She had survived, she had taught, and she had built something that would outlive her struggles. Her dream was no longer hidden in a metal box. It lived in every step her students danced, in every smile she nurtured, and in every girl who now believed that her life could be different. The morning sun poured through the large windows of Rising Steps Academy, casting golden streaks across polished floors and shining mirrors. The scent of paint, polish, and ambition mingled in the air. It was quiet now, but soon the hall would be alive with laughter, music, and movement, the pulse of a dream realized. Lila stood at the entrance, watching her students arrive. They ran through the doors in colorful shoes, their backpacks bouncing with excitement. Eyes wide with wonder, they approached her eagerly. These were not just students, they were testaments to every coin she had saved, every lonely night she had endured, and every silent tear she had shed. Her small metal box sat on a shelf nearby. Empty now, but still sacred, it had once contained her hopes. Today, her dreams were no longer coins hidden in secrecy. They had grown into lives changed, confidence nurtured, and futures brightened. It was the 5th anniversary of Rising Steps Academy. Banners fluttered outside proclaiming, "From one dream to 100 dancers." The auditorium was filled with parents, local officials, and journalists. Former students, now instructors themselves, stood beside her proudly, guiding younger dancers through warm-ups and introductions. Lila moved among them, adjusting a posture here, whispering encouragement there. The energy was electric, yet filled with grace. She paused to watch Sophia, her first-ever student, teach a group of beginners. The little girl who had once worn torn sneakers now stood tall, patient, and confident. Lila's heart swelled. This is why I endured everything," she whispered to herself. The performance that night, titled "Steps of Hope," was not just a dance, it was a story. It began with a single spotlight on a young dancer, symbolizing Lila's early days of struggle. Slowly, more dancers joined, their movements forming arcs and spirals that reflected hardship, perseverance, and triumph. Each spin, leap, and gesture carried meaning. Every challenge overcome, every secret sacrifice, every dream nurtured. The audience was silent, mesmerized, and when the music ended, there was a heartbeat of quiet, then a roar of applause. People stood, some wiping away tears. Cameras flashed. The story of a young bar dancer turned mentor had reached their hearts. Lila stepped onto the stage, her bare feet echoing on the polished floor. She felt every memory flood back. The neon lights of the bar, the clink of coins in her metal box, the laughter of her students, the whispered encouragement from Ethan. "Talent is not lost in shadows," she said to the audience. "It only waits for courage to return. Every step we take, every sacrifice we make, builds more than skill. It builds hope." Months later, an international arts foundation invited Lila to London. She stood before a packed auditorium, accepting the Global Arts Empowerment Award. She spoke from the heart. "When I danced in shadows, I didn't stop dreaming. I saved every coin, every hope, for a future I couldn't see but believed in. And today, I see it in the eyes of my students, in the joy they carry, in the lives we change together. Dreams are not what you see in sleep. They are what keep you awake, striving, and enduring." The audience rose to their feet, cheering. Lila's story, once hidden behind neon lights and judgment, had become a beacon of hope for countless others. Back at Rising Steps Academy, Lila sat quietly in the empty studio, reflecting. The floors gleamed under the soft evening light. Mirrors reflected not just her image, but the legacy she had built. She opened the old metal box once more. Though empty, it felt full of memories, sacrifice, courage, and love. She whispered, "Dream achieved, dream continues." And as she danced alone, barefoot, with only the sunlight and her reflection, she realized, dreams are not about fame or money. They are about endurance, courage, and the lives you touch along the way. Her journey had transformed more than herself. It had changed the world for hundreds of girls who now believed in possibility. And the rhythm of her steps, strong and steady, would carry that hope forward for generations.